The black SUV idles outside Mara's crumbling apartment building like a predator waiting to strike. Through her rain-streaked window, she watches a man emerge, tall, dangerous, wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that costs more than her annual rent. His dark eyes scan the building with the precision of someone who owns the night itself. 6-year-old Alec presses against her leg, trembling. "He found us," the boy whispers, and Mara's blood turns to ice. She doesn't understand yet that the man approaching her door isn't here to hurt them. She doesn't know that Cassian Morello, one of Chicago's most feared Mafia bosses, is about to turn her world upside down. Not with violence, but with a protection so fierce it will consume them both. All she knows is that 12 hours ago, she opened her door to a lost child and his dying grandmother. Now, as heavy footsteps echo in the hallway, she realizes that simple act of kindness has pulled her into a war she never saw coming. The knock comes, 3 measured strikes that seem to shake the very foundation of her small world. Welcome to Passion and Power, where love conquers even the darkest empires. Tonight's story will leave you breathless. Comment below which city you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Your support means everything to our growing family here. 24 hours earlier, Mara Villalba had been just another struggling single mother in Chicago's South Side, counting quarters for her next meal, while her 8-month-old son slept in a crib held together with duct tape. The electricity had been shut off twice that month, and the eviction notice on her door served as a daily reminder that she was one paycheck away from the streets. But Mara had learned long ago that survival meant helping others survive too. So when the soft knock came at her door during the worst thunderstorm of the season, she didn't hesitate. Through the peephole she saw them, a small boy with dark hair plastered to his head, supporting an elderly woman who could barely stand. Both were soaked to the bone, shivering in the October cold. "Please," the boy said when she opened the door, his accent carrying traces of something European. "My grandmother is very sick. We have nowhere else to go." The woman, Teresa, collapsed the moment they crossed the threshold. Mara caught her, feeling how frighteningly light she was, how her breathing rattled in her chest like autumn leaves. The boy, who introduced himself only as Alec, watched with eyes too old for his 6 years. "When did she last eat?" Mara asked, helping Teresa to the couch. "2 days ago," Alec whispered, then quickly added, "But I'm not hungry." The lie broke Mara's heart. She heated the last of her soup, gave them her only blankets, and watched Alec eat like a starving animal while trying to maintain dignity. Teresa drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling in what sounded like Italian. "Where are your parents?" Mara asked gently. Alec's face shuttered. "My father, he's in trouble. Bad men want to hurt him. Nonna and I had to run. Red flags should have been waving. A smart woman would have called social services, maybe the police." But Mara looked at this boy, really looked, and saw herself at that age, lost, scared, protecting the only family she had left. "You can stay tonight," she said. "We'll figure out tomorrow when it comes." Alec's relief was so profound he started crying, not the loud sobs of a normal child, but the silent tears of someone who had learned that noise meant danger. As Mara tucked him in beside his grandmother, she noticed how he positioned himself between Teresa and the door, how his eyes darted to every sound from the street, how he clutched a small silver cross like a lifeline. "What's your last name, sweetheart?" she asked softly. "I can't tell you," he whispered. "It's not safe." That night, Mara lay awake, listening to Teresa's labored breathing and Alec's restless sleep. She thought about her own son, innocent in his crib, and wondered what kind of world she was bringing him into. A world where 6-year-olds knew about danger, where grandmothers fled in the night, where last names were secrets too dangerous to share. She had no idea that outside, in the shadows across the street, men with guns were already watching her building. Dawn brought the sound of expensive engines and the weight of destiny. Mara woke to her baby crying, and Alec standing at the window, his small body rigid with terror. "They found us," he breathed. She joined him at the window and felt her world tilt. 3 black SUVs were parked outside, not the rusted cars of her neighborhood, but gleaming machines that screamed money and power. Men in dark suits stood at strategic positions, their posture suggesting they were armed. "Alec, who are these people?" Before he could answer, footsteps echoed in the hallway. measured, confident, belonging to someone who had never learned to fear anything. The knock that followed was neither urgent nor polite. It was the sound of inevitability. Mara opened the door and forgot how to breathe. The man standing there was devastatingly handsome, in a way that felt dangerous. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore a charcoal suit that fit like it was crafted specifically for his body. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a glimpse of muscled chest and a small, elegant tattoo on the side of his neck. A platinum Rolex caught the morning light on his wrist, but it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Dark brown, almost black, holding depths of pain and power that made her feel like she was staring into an abyss. "Miss Villalba," he said, his voice carrying a slight Italian accent that made her name sound like music. "My name is Cassian Morello. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Behind her, Alec made a sound between a sob and a sigh. "Papa." The word hit Cassian like a physical blow. His composed mask cracked for just a moment, revealing raw emotion before sliding back into place. He stepped into the apartment without invitation, his presence filling the small space until Mara felt like she couldn't breathe. "Alec," he said softly, dropping to one knee. "Are you hurt?" The boy ran to him, and Cassian's arms closed around his son with desperate tenderness. Mara watched, transfixed, as this dangerous man transformed into something vulnerable and human. "I was so scared, Papa," Alec whispered. "The men with guns, they were going to hurt you." "Shh, Piccolo, you're safe now." Cassian's eyes found Mara over his son's head. "Thanks to this brave woman." Standing slowly, still holding Alec, Cassian studied Mara with an intensity that made her skin burn. She was suddenly aware of her faded pajamas, her unwashed hair, the vast gulf between his world and hers. "You took in strangers," he said. "Fed them, protected them. Why?" "Because they needed help," she said simply. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe even respect. "Do you know who I am, Ms. Villalba?" "Should I?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Most people in Chicago know the Morello name. We're influential in certain business sectors." The careful phrasing didn't fool her. The expensive suits, the armed men, the way Alec had spoken of danger. She was looking at a criminal. Probably a dangerous one. She should be terrified. Instead, she found herself stepping closer. "Your son was scared and hungry. Your mother was dying. I don't care what your business is. No child should suffer for their father's choices." Cassian went very still. When he spoke, his voice was soft and deadly. "My mother?" "Teresa. She's on the couch. She needs a hospital, Mr. Morello, real medical care." He moved past her, and Mara caught his scent, expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more primal. At the couch, he knelt beside the unconscious woman, his large hands gentle as he checked her pulse. "Mama," he whispered in Italian, and the pain in his voice made Mara's chest tight. When he looked up, his eyes were blazing. "The men who did this, they used my family to get to me. My mother is diabetic, without her medication." He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. Mara understood. This wasn't just about power or money. This was personal. "I'm taking them to my private doctor," Cassian said, standing, "and you're coming with us." "What? No, I can't. I have my son, my job." "Ms. Villalba." His voice cut through her protests like silk over steel. "The men who hurt my family know you helped them. That makes you a target. I don't leave my debts unpaid, and I don't abandon people under my protection." The word protection sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with fear. "I don't need—" "Yes, you do." He stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You saved my son's life. That makes you mine to protect now. And I protect what's mine, Mara. Always." Cassian's world was a revelation of wealth that bordered on obscene. His mansion in Lincoln Park sat behind gates that could stop a tank, surrounded by gardens that belonged in European palaces. Inside, marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers and priceless art-adorned walls that seemed to stretch forever. Mara felt like an imposter, walking through rooms that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Her baby gurgled happily in her arms, oblivious to the armed men stationed at every entrance, the security cameras that tracked their movement, the bulletproof glass that made the windows look like black mirrors. "This is temporary," Cassian said, leading her to a guest suite that was larger than her entire apartment. "Until we neutralize the threat." "How long will that take?" His jaw tightened. "As long as necessary." Teresa had been rushed to a private medical facility where doctors worked with the efficiency of people who understood that failure meant death. Alex stayed close to Mara, his small hand in hers as they navigated this strange new world. "Why does Papa live in a castle?" he asked innocently. Before Mara could answer, Cassian appeared in the doorway. He'd changed from his suit into dark jeans and a black sweater that clung to his muscled frame. The casual clothes made him look younger, more approachable but no less dangerous. "It's not a castle, Piccolo," he said, ruffling Alex's hair. "It's just home." "Can Mara stay in my room?" Alec asked. "I don't like being alone." Cassian's eyes found hers, and she saw something flicker there, an emotion too complex to name. "If Ms. Villalba doesn't mind." "I don't mind," she said softly. That night, as Alex slept between them in the massive bed, Mara found herself studying Cassian's profile in the moonlight. He wasn't sleeping. She could tell by the tension in his shoulders, the way his breathing never quite settled. "You don't have to stay," she whispered. "I can watch him." "I haven't seen him sleep peacefully in weeks," Cassian replied without opening his eyes. "I'm not going anywhere." "What happened? Why did they take Teresa and Alec?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with pain. "There's a war coming. Old families fighting for territory, for respect, for survival. My enemies thought they could use my family as leverage." His fist clenched on the sheets. "They were wrong. And now? Now I end it." The cold certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. The attack came at dawn. Mara woke to the sound of gunfire and Cassian shouting orders in rapid Italian. He was already moving, pulling on clothes, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. "Stay down," he commanded, pushing her and Alec behind the bed. "Don't move until I come back. Cassian." He turned, and for a moment his mask slipped completely. She saw fear there, not for himself, but for them. "I won't let them touch you," he said fiercely. "Either of you, I swear it." Then he was gone, and Mara was left holding two terrified children while a war raged outside their door. The silence, when it came, was almost worse than the gunfire. Footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, coming closer. Mara held her breath, clutching her baby and Alec, praying to a god she'd stopped believing in years ago. The door opened. Cassian stood there, alive but changed. His sweater was torn, blood on his hands. Not his own, she realized, with a mixture of relief and horror. His dark eyes swept the room until they found her, and something in his expression made her heart skip. "It's over," he said simply, but Mara knew it wasn't. Whatever had just happened, whoever he'd had to hurt or kill to protect them, it was just the beginning. And as Cassian crossed the room to gather them in his arms, she realized she didn't care. She was falling for a man who lived in shadows and spoke in violence. And God help her, she'd never felt more alive. The revelation came 3 days later, delivered by a man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Morello," the lawyer said carefully, "the FBI has been building a case. They have surveillance footage of Ms. Villalba entering your property. They know about the boy." Mara felt the blood drain from her face. She was sitting in Cassian's study, ostensibly there to discuss Alec's schooling, but really because Cassian seemed incapable of letting her out of his sight since the attack. "What does that mean?" she asked. The lawyer's uncomfortable glance at Cassian told her everything she needed to know. "It means," Cassian said quietly, "that being here puts you in danger from more than just my enemies. The federal government considers you a flight risk now," the lawyer continued. "Association with known criminals. They could take your son." The words hit Mara like physical blows. Her baby, her innocent, perfect baby, could be taken away because she'd tried to help a sick old woman and a scared little boy. There has to be something. There is, Cassian interrupted. His voice was carefully controlled, but she could see the storm brewing in his dark eyes. You leave. Tonight. I'll arrange new identities, money, protection. You disappear. And Alec? Stays with me, where he belongs. The pain in his voice was unmistakable, but so was his resolve. He was willing to lose his son to keep him safe, willing to lose her too. No, Mara said firmly. Both men stared at her. No, she repeated, standing. I'm not running, and I'm not letting you tear this family apart. Mara, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. She moved closer to Cassian, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You think you're protecting us by pushing us away. But Alec needs stability. He needs people who love him, and you— She reached up, touching his face gently. You need us too. Cassian caught her hand, his fingers warm and strong around hers. If you stay, there's no going back. The FBI, my enemies, this life, it becomes yours too. Then I guess I better learn to live with it. The lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably. There is one option. If Ms. Villalba were family, legally speaking, it would complicate any federal case, make it harder to use her as leverage. Cassian's eyes never left Mara's face. What are you suggesting? Marriage, the lawyer said bluntly. Real marriage, legal documentation. It would provide some protection under spousal privilege laws. The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. It would be a business arrangement, Cassian said finally. Protection, nothing more. But his thumb was stroking across her knuckles, and his eyes were saying something entirely different. I understand, Mara whispered. She didn't understand anything except that she couldn't imagine a life without this dangerous, complicated man and his broken, beautiful son. The wedding was small, held in Cassian's private chapel with only a handful of witnesses. Mara wore a simple white dress that somehow appeared in her size overnight. Cassian stood beside her in a black suit, his platinum Rolex catching the candlelight as he slipped a ring onto her finger. When the priest asked if he would love, honor, and protect her, Cassian's voice was steady. I will. When it was her turn, Mara looked into his eyes and saw past the careful walls he'd built. Saw the man who read bedtime stories to his son in 3 languages, who held her baby like he was made of spun glass, who'd killed to keep them safe and would do it again without hesitation. I will, she whispered. The kiss was supposed to be ceremonial, brief, meaningless. Instead, when Cassian's lips touched hers, the world disappeared. His hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness, and she could taste his desperation, his need, his carefully buried hope. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. What have we done? He breathed. Something necessary, she replied. But as they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Mara knew it was more than that. It was the beginning of something that would either save them both or destroy them completely. That night, as she lay in the guest room that was now officially hers, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, restless, belonging to a man who couldn't sleep. She opened her door to find Cassian standing there, still in his wedding clothes, looking lost. I wanted to check on you, he said quietly. Make sure you had everything you needed. I do, she said. Then, because she was tired of pretending, she added, but I'd sleep better if you stayed. His eyes darkened. Mara. Just to sleep, she clarified, though they both knew she was lying. He followed her into the room, and when she turned to face him, he was closer than she'd expected. Close enough to see the conflict warring in his expression. This wasn't supposed to happen, he said roughly. What wasn't? This. His hand came up to trace her cheek. Wanting you. Needing you. You were supposed to be safe from me. Maybe I don't want to be safe. The words hung between them like a challenge. Cassian's control was fraying. She could see it in the tension of his shoulders, the way his breathing had changed. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. She stepped closer, until they were breathing the same air. I know you're dangerous. I know you've done terrible things. I know this life comes with prices I can't even imagine. Then why? Because when I look at you, I don't see a monster. I see a man who loves his son so much, he'd sacrifice everything to keep him safe. I see someone who's been alone so long, he's forgotten what it feels like to be loved. Cassian's hands framed her face, his thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize she was crying. I can't promise you a normal life, he said hoarsely. I don't want normal. I want you. When he kissed her this time, there was nothing ceremonial about it. It was desperate and hungry and full of promises neither of them dared speak aloud. His hands tangled in her hair, and she could feel the careful control he'd maintained for weeks finally cracking. Mara, he breathed against her lips. My beautiful, brave Mara. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Show me, she whispered. Show me what it means to be yours. The last of his restraint shattered. The morning brought news that changed everything. Mara woke in Cassian's arms, her body still humming from the night they'd shared. He was already awake, watching her with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. Good morning, Mrs. Morello, he murmured, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. I like the sound of that, she admitted. His smile was devastating. So do I. They were interrupted by urgent knocking. Cassian was instantly alert, his body shifting into protective mode as he reached for the gun on his nightstand. Boss, came Marcus's voice through the door. We have a problem. Cassian threw on clothes and stepped into the hallway, leaving the door cracked so Mara could hear. The Kozlov family made a move last night, Marcus reported. They hit 3 of our businesses, and they left a message. What kind of message? They want the boy. They think he saw something the night of the attack on you. They're saying if we don't hand him over, they'll start targeting civilians, schools, hospitals. Mara felt ice form in her veins. She could see Cassian's shoulders tense, could practically feel the rage radiating from him. They threatened children, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Yes, sir. They want Alec by midnight, or they start a war that won't end until Chicago burns. Cassian was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm in a way that terrified Mara more than shouting would have. Call a meeting, all the families, tonight. Sir, if Victor Kozlov wants a war, he'll get one, but it won't be the war he's expecting. After Marcus left, Cassian came back into the room. Mara was sitting on the edge of the bed, clutching the sheets around her. You're going to give them what they want, she said. It wasn't a question. No. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. I'm going to end this, once and for all. How? His smile was sharp as a blade. By doing something no one expects. I'm going to tell the truth. The meeting was held in neutral territory, an old warehouse on the south side that had seen more blood than most battlefields. Representatives from every major family in Chicago gathered around a single table, tension thick enough to cut. Victor Kozlov sat across from Cassian, his pale eyes cold as winter. He was younger than Cassian, hungrier, with the kind of ambition that left bodies in its wake. You know why we're here, Victor said without preamble. Give us the boy, and this ends quietly. The boy is 6 years old, Cassian replied calmly, and he's my son. He's a witness to crimes that could bring down half the families in this room. Is he? Cassian leaned back in his chair, his platinum Rolex catching the harsh warehouse lights. Tell me, Victor, what exactly do you think he saw? Victor's confidence flickered. The night your mother was taken, the night you had my diabetic mother kidnapped and left to die while you tortured a child for information he doesn't have. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Other family heads shifted uncomfortably. Why, you have no proof. I have something better. Cassian's smile was predatory. I have the truth. Alec didn't see who betrayed me that night, but I know who did. He stood slowly, commanding the attention of every person in the room. It was you, Victor. You fed information to my enemies, hoping they'd eliminate me and leave you to pick up the pieces. When that failed, you took my family, thinking you could force me to step down. You're lying. Am I? Cassian pulled out his phone, pressing play on a recording. Victor's voice filled the warehouse, captured in crystal clarity. Kill Morello if you have to, but make it look like the Torinos did it. I want his territory and I want his connections." The silence that followed was deafening. Victor's hand moved toward his gun, but he never made it. Cassian was faster, his own weapon appearing with deadly precision. "The boy stays with me," Cassian said quietly. "My family stays with me. And you—" He pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the warehouse like thunder. When the smoke cleared, Victor Kozlov was dead, and Cassian Morello stood unchallenged. "Anyone else have questions about my son?" he asked the room. No one did. Later, as they drove home through the Chicago night, Mara watched her husband's profile in the dashboard lights. He'd killed a man tonight, not in the heat of battle, but with cold, calculated precision. She should be horrified. Instead, she felt safer than she ever had in her life. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Killing him? No." Cassian's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "He threatened you, he threatened Alec, he threatened innocent people. Men like that don't deserve mercy." "I meant marrying me, getting involved with someone from my world." He pulled the car over, turning to face her fully. In the dim light, his eyes were impossibly dark, impossibly tender. "Mara Morello," he said, her new name rolling off his tongue like a prayer. "You are the best thing that's ever happened to me. You took in my son when he was lost. You stood by me when it would have been easier to run. You married me knowing exactly what kind of man I am." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing across her cheek. "I spent my whole life thinking I was too dark, too dangerous, too broken for love. Then you opened your door in the middle of a storm and proved me wrong." "Cassian." "I love you," he said simply. "I love your strength, your compassion, your ridiculous bravery. I love the way you make Alec laugh, the way you've made this house feel like a home. I love you so much it terrifies me." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I love you too, all of you, even the parts that scare me." When he kissed her, it tasted like promises and forever. "Take me home," she whispered against his lips. "You are home," he replied. "You're my home, Mara. You and Alec and our son. You're everything." As they drove through the city lights, Mara thought about the woman she'd been just weeks ago. Alone, struggling, afraid. That woman could never have imagined this life, this love, this dangerous, beautiful man who'd claimed her heart so completely. But that woman had also been brave enough to open her door to strangers in need. And sometimes, Mara thought as Cassian's hand squeezed hers, that's all it takes to change everything. Years had passed since that stormy night when destiny knocked on Mara's door, and the small apartment in Chicago's South Side had become nothing more than a memory. In its place stood a life she could never have imagined, one filled with love, laughter, and the kind of security that came from being cherished by a man who would move mountains to protect his family. The Morello mansion had transformed too, from a cold fortress into a warm home where children's voices echoed through marble halls. Alec, now 10, raced through the gardens with his little brother, Mara and Cassian's son, born 2 years after their wedding, while their newest addition, a baby girl with Cassian's dark eyes and Mara's stubborn chin, gurgled happily in her father's arms. "She's going to be trouble," Cassian murmured, pressing a kiss to his daughter's forehead, just like her mother. Mara laughed, settling beside him on the terrace where they watched their boys play. "I seem to remember you saying you liked trouble." "Only when it comes in the form of beautiful women who save lost children," he replied, his free arm pulling her close. The legitimate businesses Cassian had gradually transitioned to were thriving. The darker aspects of his past remained, but they stayed in the shadows where they belonged, never touching the light of their family life. He'd kept his promise, to protect what was his always. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't opened that door?" Mara asked, watching Alec teach his little brother how to kick a soccer ball. Cassian was quiet for a moment, his platinum Rolex, the same one he'd worn that first morning, catching the afternoon sun as he adjusted their daughter in his arms. "No," he said finally. "Because you would have opened it. That's who you are, amore mio. You see someone in need and you help. It's what made me fall in love with you. Even though it complicated your life beyond measure?" His smile was soft, transformative. "You didn't complicate my life, Mara. You saved it." As the sun set over Chicago, Painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the Morello family sat together in perfect contentment. A single mother who'd risked everything for strangers, a mafia boss who'd found redemption in love, and the children who'd brought them together and given them a future worth fighting for. Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness, and sometimes, when you open your door to help someone in need, you discover that you were the one who needed saving all along. What an incredible journey of love, sacrifice, and family. Cassian and Mara's story proves that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most beautiful destinies. Did this story touch your heart? Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was, and don't forget to subscribe for more passionate tales that will leave you breathless. Your support helps us bring you these amazing love stories every week. Until next time, keep believing in the power of love